All right, Don, the floor is yours.
Okay, I think everybody out there is having broken queen syndrome. I'm getting a lot of people coming up here and wanting to buy queens. And I take a few minutes and I talk to them. And the biggest problem is they're getting honeybound. So before you start jumping in and buying queens, most people are looking in their hive and they're using a veil and they don't see no brood, they don't see no young larvae in there. So the first thing they do is say, the queen's failing. Well, if you look real close, one trick is to put your back to the sun and look in the cells. If you see white milk-like, you've got larvae in there. If it's shiny, then you've got nectar in there. And when one bee hatches out, they're backfilling with honey or nectar. So people right away are jumping the gun and they want to buy new queens. Most queens ain't going to break the first 4 or 5 years. In fact, my belief is the second year they actually do a lot better. So before you go trying to do that, replacing the queen and throwing money away, go through your hive real careful and look. And if you're producing honey, my best suggestion is you're going to have a real strong hive and you're borderline swarming constantly. So you need to go in that hive top to bottom every 14 days and really do a good examination, the sidebars and everything, look for cells, because when you got a hive that full and this hot as it's been, they're going to make cells on you, and you don't want to be losing your bees because of negligence. So we've had several students here from out of state coming over here and trying to pick my brain, and now it's about empty, so it's got a vacancy up there. So if you got some questions, shoot them here. Pat stopped over Friday, and she picked up 2 packages and 2 queens, and I guess that's the first time she's actually been around and handled bees with no bee suit and no gloves. So I told her ahead of time, just be patient and don't get excited. The bees land on you, they're just going to pull some salt off you. So, but it all went pretty good. I've been shaking packages pretty good now lately, and Greg come down here and he got some more learning, and we're staying busy as you can get. I just wish I had a lot more boxes. So if anybody's got questions, let's hear your questions, and welcome all the new people.
Okay. Paul, you are up first. Go ahead.
Don, I opened up one of my nukes and I see a queen. Then I go to the next frame and I see my marked queen. So I don't know if it's the daughter and they're in there together. I left them both in there.
Why?
I ran out of time. I had to make the beat chat.
Well, anytime you have, if you know for sure you got the mother in there and the daughter, and if they're on 2 different frames, I think the first thing I'd do is take the daughter, put her in a nuke, maybe take another frame and shake some bees and leave that mother in the original box you got there. And because, sometimes they'll live for a few days and sometimes they just end up getting killed. So you're actually losing a good nuke that way.
Yeah, I mean, I seen her in there. She didn't really look too healthy. I mean, they weren't. Huh?
Didn't look healthy?
I don't know. She was. The bees weren't really bothering her, but she was like kind of. I don't know.
The daughter or the mother?
The daughter.
She might have been out drinking. Well, what she look like? Did the colors, was they real definite or was they kind of
No, she was very like bland.
Bland looking? Well,
Yeah.
She probably just hatched out, and they work a little slower. They walk slower. They act, a little slower. That would.
But I didn't even see any. I didn't even see any queen cells in that nuke.
You had to have a queen cell. Okay, you just missed it.
Yeah.
Probably. What are you running, doubles?
That was in no, that was in a single 5 frame.
A single 5 frame. Are you running wood and wax, or are you running plastic?
Plastic.
You need to check real close to the edges. They'll run that queen cells along the edges. Or
Yeah.
Another thing about that plastic, this year, I noticed a lot of boxes, they're making double comb. So if you got a little bit of double comb, kind of look up underneath that. You might have a cell there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But move it off, put it in another nuke before, probably go out tonight with a flashlight.
Yeah, maybe I'll do it tomorrow then. I did some other splits. I picked up 2 more queens, and I threw a couple of frames of just brood in there. No eggs, no larvae, so hopefully they do all right. I just put some syrup on them. I threw a little pollen patty in there. I put those. I did those splits in the double nukes. So.
You mean a division in there, or 2 deep on top of another?
Yeah, the regular 4-frame double nukes.
Oh, okay. All right.
So.
Well, make sure that divider comes clear to the top so they don't go across on you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all right. I have like probably about a frame of bees in there, so hopefully they do all right. And a full frame of brood.
The fan is running.
Oh.
He said shut it off, and then I said.
All right, that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Okay. Over to Philip. Go ahead, Philip.
Hey Don, how you doing?
Okay.
The plasticell.
Yeah.
Remember we talked last time, your son said they were not drawn on plastic. Well, I found that to be true up here in Michigan as well.
Yeah.
They're on it, but they're not doing a lot if it's not kind of drawn or already have some kind of comb on it. So I did what you said, and I've never done the fish line starter strip or wood, and I just waxed the top. And they've already got that about almost.
You're talking plastic?
No, yeah, the plasticell, they weren't drawing on it. Because I remember you mentioned
Right.
they weren't, but so now I did the fish line. I watched one of your videos way back when, and I did that fish line starter strip.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got those things about half drawn out already. It's only been about 3 or 4 days, and they're chock full of eggs, every cell.
Okay.
So that's working. But I am seeing the honey stuff backfilling though.
Well, what I would do is keep feeding them if you're drawing comb out. Now, what I've been doing, experimenting around with plastic, if you put brand new plastic in that's got a light coating on it, they'll draw it if you're feeding them real good or if you got a good honey flow. Now, I've been using a sponge roller and rolling it on, and take my hive tool and just sliding it across there and taking the excess off.
Yep.
Basically just giving it a coat. But I tried something today, which I'm using black plastic, or I've got some that my son brought up. I just let the sun hit it, and I stand there with my hand on that plastic. When it gets warm, you can either take a sheet of new foundation, roll it up tight, or I got some blocks, and I got blocks that are made in a bread pan, and they're about 1 inch thick. So I'm just standing it up on the edge and waiting that plastic gets warm enough, and I just rub it back and forth, and it puts a white coating all over it. And I put a few in to see how they're going to do that.
Okay. Yeah, we got to get some sunshine for I can do that. But I did melt some in a little mini, like a melter, and then the little 2-inch roller, and I coated. I got like 40 medium frames. I coated tonight, and it basically looks like some of those in there now. They're just barely got stuff on them, but they got a new coat of wax on all of them now.
Well, are you using the felt rollers or are you using the sponge roller?
Gosh, I'm not sure which one I had now. I can't remember. I know it was wasn't a big pile roller. I mean, it didn't have a lot of.
Well, the one I'm using is 1 inch diameter, and it's about 4 or 5 inches long. And I found that sponge actually does better. So I get my wax in my melting tank down. I get it good and hot, and I stick it down below. I run about 1 inch of wax in there, and I run it down into the water, and I swish it around good. And then as I bring it up, it coats it with wax. And then I roll the side of my metal container, take out that excess wax, and then just give it a couple quick rolls. And it seems to be doing pretty well.
Okay.
But I'm kind of, it seems like it's putting a lot of wax on. That's why I went with my hive tool and just went over the top of it after it cooled down and took the excess off.
All right. Yeah, that's what I got 40 of them done, and then I've got some supers are getting full, so obviously I'm not feeding them, but I'm gonna try and do. I guess I'm gonna have to feed the other ones that I want to draw. But most of the deeps are drawn. It's the honey supers that are a little slow. A couple of them are doing well. Some are slow. And of course, you can't feed them. But yeah, we're not really into big nectar flow right now. There's some things popping, but not a lot. We've had Michigan. We've had, like, in our area, we've had 3 inches more rain than we usually do. So we haven't had a whole lot of sunshine. It's been kind of a slow start, but
We've had plenty of that here.
I'll definitely start that, though. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, over to Virgil and Thunder. Go. You guys got to unmute it.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a couple questions, Don. What the queen cell, as long as they're capped, we can cut them out, or does it have to be at a certain number of days?
I like to let them go to about 8 to 9 days. That way they're firm. If you get them when they first cap them, the walls seem to like they're a little bit not mushy, but they're too thin. Once they get a little bit firmer, then they're better to cut. And then I always cut at least 3/4 of an inch around the cell. If you got a double or a twin or a triplet there, you're better off just to cut them out as a unit and then put them in between 2 frames. That's the way I usually do it. And then just go back, mark your hives, go back and check them. You know, once you look at a cell, you can determine within a day when it's coming out. Then you can check your boxes every half an hour, whatever, you know, is convenient for you.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit overwhelmed now. We're up to 28. I just can't quit making bees here lately.
Well,
but the other thing,
you must have learned something.
everything from you. That's just it. I'm getting out of control because every time I see a queen cell, I got to make another box.
Yeah.
I got 2 queen castles going now. So, but does it matter where I grab any attendance? I know I've gotten behind a couple and opened a box and found a new queen there. So I really quick grab her out. But if I just grab some bees, some nurses.
Talking about attendance for a queen cage?
No, I mean, I didn't mean attendance. I meant nurse bees. Does it matter where I grab them from?
Well, what I usually do if you're not sure, and I'm not working a lot faster, is I grab a frame and I shake a lot more than I actually want, because I figure there's going to be a percentage that's going to fly back to the parent hive, whether you got it 3 foot or, 30 foot or 100 foot. I do most of my splits in either my front yard or my side yard.
Okay, but I can grab nurse bees out of anywhere and shake them in with that new queen?
Not anywhere. They have to come out of the hive.
Out of her hive.
Out of her hive. If it's if it's a virgin now, a lot of times you can let them walk into a hive. If you catch them with the first 24 hours, it's best the first hour to 3 hours. They usually do a lot better.
Yeah, I've had a couple where they're just finishing hatching out, and I like I said, I'm getting a bit overwhelmed because he's working and not here to help. But
when you just hatch out like that, don't try to pick your queens up. They got soft wings.
I just let them walk into those cages.
Well, what you can do is you can put your fingers down in front of them and then put your finger sort of behind them and just nudge them a little bit, and they'll crawl up on your finger. Or if you don't have that, you could take a wooden tongue depressor. Sometimes I'll use my hive tool to show a new student. Let them walk up on your hive tool, but don't lift the hive tool too high because you don't want them to fall off. It's slick.
Okay. And then yesterday I kind of screwed up. We were going through them. I've been trying to get through them about every 7 or 8 days just to check because they're all 5-frame nukes and they're just exploding. But I opened one up, and on the top of the frames, there was a bunch of bees in a ball. It didn't dawn on me right away. I kind of brushed them off and started to go through, and then it dawned on me that something's going on. So I started picking through there, and they had the old queen, and they were trying to kill her. So
some people think they're trying to kill them, but a lot of times they're actually trying to protect them.
Oh no, they were trying to kill her.
Oh.
They were just tearing her up. I couldn't hardly even pull them off of her.
Yeah.
I got her out, got her in another queen cage, and I went to put some nurse bees in with her yesterday, and then today I went out to release her, and as soon as I got her out of that cage, she flew off. She did a couple circles, and I kind of watched her and thought I could catch her, and I finally gave up, and then I looked over and she was back. You think she'll go back in there?
It's possible. If she oriented to that hive originally, it's possible. I've had them fly off of a frame go up, take a few circles around, and come back. It'll land on my back or land into a hive or land on the side of the box.
Okay, well, I hope so.
Now, when you talk about your attendance, I thought you was referring to caging your queens. If you decide you're going to cage queens, that was brought up when Greg was down here. He was catching queens, and I had another student catching queens. It's best if you don't recognize what a worker is from a nurse bee. Watch for the bees that are bent over, and they're either putting nectar in a cell. That way their butt is up in the air and their wings is straight up. You can pick them up. If they're bringing nectar or getting nectar out, usually they're forager bees. That's the easiest way to find out.
I'll have to pay more attention. I usually try to grab something that's on the brood and looks fairly new, like a younger bee, real fuzzy or small.
Well, if you're caging queens now for resale, you don't want to do that. You want to get older bees.
Older ones?
Yeah, older ones. You want field bees. That's why you want to get them either put nectar in a cell or, drinking some.
Okay. I still got a lot of learning to do, but I just can't see wasting all those queen cells. I just keep making more, and he keeps handing over the money to go buy more equipment.
Well, it's like an ATM machine. If you don't work it, you ain't going to just push the button, let 20s come jumping out and throw them on the ground and walk away.
That's all we got for right now. Thanks, Don.
Okay. All right.
All right. Bruce has a question. I don't think his microphone's working. When you catch a swarm and there are 2 queens, I put a queen in separate boxes and put some bees in each one, then went back the next day and they all went back to one box. How do you keep them separated?
Well, if you catch a swarm and there's multiple queens in it, the best thing to do is to put the queens that you're catching in a queen cage, and you don't have to put no sugar in there, just a cork in each end. Put a frame of honey in with them. Don't use brood, just a frame of honey, and shake some extra bees in there. That way they'll stay in the box most of the time.
Okay. All right. Over to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Don, last week I had a frantic call from somebody in the city saying that they had a clump of bees in their yard. So I drove over there. I didn't have any equipment with me. I had these old crappy frames that I was going to just cut the wax out and melt it down. But I threw them in there. That's the only thing I had. And I tell you, I didn't open the hive up because I didn't have any equipment with me. So I drove it up to the cabin on Thursday, and I opened it up, and I can't believe how they cleaned those frames up. Unbelievable.
They work pretty fast in a swarm.
And I tell you, these bees, the queen is pitch black. I never had a queen like that. No. Hopefully she does all right.
Maybe somebody bought a package of bees somewhere close to you and it swarmed on them.
Yeah, I don't know. So the guy was happy, though, to get him out of his yard.
Well, free bees, that's always good.
Yeah, I was happy. All right, thanks, Don.
Okay.
Okay. Over to our fellow admin, Greg. Oh, wait, you're still muted. There you go.
Hey, Don, thanks again. Dan and I had a real good time learning from you. It's amazing how much you learn every time we come down. Just one thing after another. No sooner got home and was caging up a bunch of queens to ship off. And all those tricks, I would have never thought I'd have learned how to shake frames off to a landing board and to pick a queen to put her in a cage and how fast that is. But I've had to use that trick a few times now already. So thanks for all that. I had a question for you. Today I was going through, we made a bunch of splits, got a bunch of our grafted queens out in boxes and refreshed all of our stock from selling queens. And I was going through a box and I heard a bunch of piping, and I found the queen that was piping, but she's a big fat mated queen, and I saw 3 cells that must have hatched when I was down at your place that I didn't catch before I left. I didn't see a single virgin queen, and I looked through them, I shook them out, but I found her, and she was the one that's piping. Have you ever seen where the original queen will be the one piping, and she'll go through and cut down or kill the virgins that come out?
I've seen just about everything you can see
Okay.
in beekeeping over the years.
Is that possible?
I've seen as many as 3, of the daughters walking on the same frame as the mother. And I've had many a person say, well, that don't happen. They're just going to kill one another. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it come back in a day or two, and then they've gotten rid of them. But anytime I run across multiple queens like that, I separate them out. If you're not sure they're mated, put them in a cage, put them in another box, let them sit for 24 hours before you turn the queens back out.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll check again and see if I can't find the virgins running around, or see if that mated queen has disappeared. But I guess I was kind of thinking, if she's the one piping, I guess my thought was she's the one that's on the attack. But I guess I'll just keep an eye on it and see kind of what shakes out of there.
Well, I think you watched a few virgins down here, and I think it was either you or Dan. You can turn that frame from one side to the other, and a virgin queen can run faster, and you can turn that frame back.
That's true. Yeah, they're quick and they're small.
You might have a crevice or something.
Probably still in there. Yeah. I'll keep an eye on it. Thanks again, Don, for all the mentorship and everything else. Really appreciate you.
Dan learned a few things then.
He did. And if anyone's, I know you guys have heard me say it a million times, if you can get down to see Don, you guys know Don preaches selling bees, and he'll teach you how to raise bees and make bees, and you can't build boxes fast enough. That's the truth. Dan, my fellow co-host on the Contrary Beekeeper show, the podcast there, Dan's into making honey. He's not really interested in making bees. And Don still takes the time, and he'll teach you how to make honey if that's what you want to do. And Dan learned an awful lot. So we had a lot to talk about on the trip home. So thanks, Don.
Okay.
All righty. Oh, Philip had a question. I thought you still got a question, Phil?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, now you're talking about the queens. About what time do they, does it vary from state to state as far as swarming? Because I went in my box like the last couple weeks, and the one box I have that's from last year that I split, that's actually growing pretty good, still keeps making cells. I just tip the bottom up, put a little smoke on it, and 4, 5, 6 cells almost every time I go in there. I did leave a supersedure cell this last time. I seen one up on the frame way up top.
I see Greg's already starting to get that look on his face.
Yeah.
An egg is an egg,
Yeah.
I'll argue that with anybody. I don't care where it's on that frame. If it's a good egg and, it's going to hatch, it's going to be a queen.
Right.
People like to, it's a swarm cell. It's an emergency cell. It's a supersedure cell. It's a bunch of humbug.
Okay. So just a cell is a cell wherever it's at.
Well, I use the old way to explain it is, if you got chickens and you got roosters and they're yard chickens, if they lay an egg on the ground and sit on it, it's going to hatch. If they go to the second floor of a barn and sit on it, it hatches. If they go into the attic of the barn and sit on it, it hatches. So it doesn't matter where that egg is, it's going to hatch. Okay. And if you've got a queen that's mated and producing good, viable eggs, it's going to hatch. It's going to turn into a queen.
Yeah, because like I said, there was probably 4 or 5 on the bottom and one like real close to the top of the bar there, and I left that one and see what happens, I guess.
A lot of times, if you've got multiple cells, I find it does better if you single them out and do one. Some people like to leave 2 in there or 3. I only do it if I can't separate them. It goes back to that one queen hatches, they're going to kill the other one. And if they both hit each other at the same time, then you lost them both.
Yep. Okay. Then I just left the one cell. I took the rest of them out and I just left the one. So
what'd you do with the other ones? Throw them on the ground?
What's that?
You threw the other cells on the ground, or did you put them in boxes?
I took one in the box and the other ones weren't quite finished yet, so I just cut them down. Oh,
you're just throwing $20 at a time in the ground.
Well, whatever the wife lets me throw on the ground.
Tell her they're $100 bills.
Then she might want to get into it a little bit more. Yeah, and the box, I just can't get the stuff built fast. They're just making them so fast.
That's what I keep telling you. If you follow simple procedures, you'll never build boxes fast enough.
No, since I've been watching your videos from last year, I still am not building boxes fast enough. But thanks, Don.
Okay.
All right, and Jason and Linda wanted to say something. Go ahead, guys.
Hey, hi, Don. We made it back home, and boy, I sure did miss you, because I was thinking, where are you, talking in my ear?
Yeah.
So we brought back, we spent the week at Dawn's, and I can't tell you, we learned so much. In fact, on the way home, we wrote down all of our lessons learned, and I thought I would have the top 10, but we actually have 30 things that lessons learned, and I know I can't read them all, but I would like, if it's okay, to maybe read the top 10.
Sure.
Because I think it will be helpful. And I'll put the rest of them on the Bee Chat. How does that sound, Don?
Okay. Well, you need to tell people that I'm not a hard teacher, even if you make a mistake, right?
Well, you're going to hear that in a second.
Yeah, you're going to hear that. But I did, when we pulled into Dawn's bee yard, the first thing that I said to Dawn was that I was a little nervous about coming, because I didn't, as a teacher myself, I didn't want to get in trouble or not perform, and I was a little nervous. And Don was very patient. In fact, when we threw some queens on the ground, he didn't even get mad about that. So I was very, very pleased. But we had a great week and learned lots of stuff, and we're still learning. And Dawn, I was not prepared for when we brought those 25, the Nooks home, and we opened them up. And I mean, it was just like the bees were just boiling out, because Stephen really filled those Nook boxes way full. And so we brought back 25 Nooks and 16 queens. And I think we, just in the 1 week, we already have 60 hives out there that we've split, and we checked them today. And I mean, there's just multiple queen cells. And of course, we do have boxes built, and so we're ready, but I'm just blown away at how fast they are producing.
Well, see, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I don't like to tell people how strong these boxes are, but you seen with the boxes, you could basically make 3 splits probably off of each of those 5-frame boxes easily.
Yeah.
And I know Greg, he's seen some of that come down here. So
Yeah.
that's one thing, like when we shake packages and stuff, they're really heavy. And, I sold some Nukes today, and the lady was surprised and had 5 frames of brood in it, and some of them was hatching.
Yeah. And Don, in a couple of the Nook boxes, I mean, there were some dead bees in the bottom, not as many, as we saw, but it was only because they were just so full.
Yeah.
And literally, when we took, unscrewed the lid, I mean, it was just like boiling over like a big cauldron. Yeah. And I am so glad that you made us look at each of the hives and find the queen, because I couldn't find a single queen in any of those when we got home. But there were so many bees in the air, and it was pretty incredible. So what did you think, Jason?
She said it better than I can even say it. Yeah.
So, okay, so are you ready for the top 10? Top 10. There's 30 on my list, but these are the top 10. Okay, so number 10, do bring your own smoker to learn how to better utilize it. I was so afraid of not bringing my smoker, and I was just kicking myself that I didn't bring it. So bring your smoker. All right, number 9, make sure you eat breakfast before you come to work, so you'll have plenty of strength to lift those boxes, because I was dying at the end of the day. Right? Number 8, view that brick video multiple times before coming to the bee yard, because I still got confused about the bricks, and I'm still trying to get it all straightened on. And then 7, use the box with the bottom to set off the frames, because remember when I put it into an open box and you said, nope, you'll get dirt and crud when you put that frame back in. So make sure when you set off a frame that you're using a box that has a bottom, because I wasn't doing that. And then as you're lifting the lid, raise it straight up so that you look underneath to make sure that there's no comb or the queen directly underneath. And then, so this will be number 5, listen to the box, because if it's quiet, then you know you have either a queen or a queen cell. Okay? So see, how am I doing? I think I learned quite a bit. Okay.
I must have harped on you enough.
You did. You did. Okay. Number 4, fingers make the best hive tool. He kept harping on me. I wanted to stick my hive tool in there, and he's like, why are you doing that? Use your fingers. So I'm trying to use my fingers a little bit. And then number 3, don't worry about making mistakes. You will, and Dawn won't get mad. See, that's number 3 on my list. Number 2, which I think you'll really like this one, Dawn, never say never. You might just like that wax press after all.
Yep.
Okay, I think it is going to be on my Christmas list if I can talk him into letting me do that. That was the funnest day that I had, was making that wax. And then number 1, which I told you I'd give you a drum roll. Remember I said I'd do that. The most needed accessory, pack a large bottle of Doan's pills for your aching back, because you will need it. And I needed it every day. So that was it, Dawn. We had a great time. We can't wait to come back.
Now, would you say to anybody that was thinking of coming here, they'll learn at least something?
At least something.
If they have a pulse, you have to have a pulse, but if you have a pulse, you're going to learn something. Yeah. And that's some of the best money that you'll invest in your business too, because you can read and you can watch the videos. Lord knows we've watched the videos over and over and over and over and over, but there's something different about being there and doing it personally. And that's one of the things that Don's going to emphasize when you go there. He is not going to show you how to do what you need to do in those boxes. He's going to watch you open the box, and he's going to say, what do you see?
Next. What
are you going to do? And what needs to be done? And you're going to struggle, and you're going to learn, and you're going to screw up, and you're going to learn, and you're going to get stung, and you're going to learn. And it's just going to, but by the end of the week, you'll be fearless in the way you approach your business and the way you approach your bees. And that's going to make you a lot more successful, you guys. So highly, highly, highly recommend that you take the time and go.
And Greg, I have a question for you. And Don, what does pinging mean?
Piping.
Or piping. What did you say, piping? I don't know what that means.
Piping is when the queen is piping. She's calling attendance.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you hear her over the rest of the box?
Oh, you can hear it. It's a adapted sound. If you've ever had a battery go dead on you and you had your turn signal on, it goes beep, beep, like the battery's going dead. And once you hear it, you'll recognize it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for us. I know we took a lot of time, but we had a great time, and I just wanted to share those lessons learned. Thanks, Don.
Well,
we're going to have that extra stuff on the Fat Bean Man Facebook, and we also will put it on our website, which is just Beltie, B-E-L-T-I-E, Bees, B-E-E-S, all one word, .com. B-E-L-T-I-E, B-E-E-S.com. That's it.
All right.
Now, when I have students that come here, I've done it to Linda several times. I'll show you what to do. If I don't think you get it, I've actually got a hold of her hands and put them on a frame so she got the feel, and helped her lift the box up so you know how to put a box on. Once I do that, I'm going to sit down and watch you work. Then I'm going to start picking at what you're doing right and wrong. But if you're working them hives, you will be able to move them with your fingertips.
Yep. Okay. Over to Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, just want to say thanks for coming over today. I had a question about something he said before. How can you tell the difference between a virgin queen and a mated queen?
Well, the only real reason is to look for eggs and you know she's mated. But a lot of times on a virgin queen, the first day or two, they're not real definite in color. It's like faded out or weak looking colors. And then the abdomen starts to get filled out more. And then she's going to kind of drag her butt along when she's walking. to walk like a pregnant woman, you know, they just kind of lunge around because they're laying, you know, a lot of eggs every day.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Over to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Don, when you see queen cups on a frame,
Mm-hmm.
now I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I see everybody taking their hive tool and tearing them out. Does it really matter? They're just going to rebuild them again.
Not necessarily. There's a difference between a queen cup and a start of a queen. Now, I guess Greg looked at it at first and he didn't understand it, but I'll let Greg explain to you how I told him how it looks. That way, he knows he's learning something. Explain to him what the difference is in them.
Okay, so Paul, when I was first looking at it, I would just, before I was working with Don about it, I would just like kind of let them be and figure, hey, they put them there for a reason. But what I learned from Don is how to save time in the bee yard. And when you pull up them frames and you see those fat light bulb shaped cups, Don calls those false cells. And then I started seeing that in my own yard after he taught me that. So what I've learned from Don to do is when you see those short, stubby cells, you know, flip the frame up and look inside. If you don't see an egg or a larva, they haven't done anything with it. So what Don taught me to do is to go ahead and just pinch that off. So the next time you're in that hive later on that week, you're not going through and checking every single false cell for an egg, for an egg, for an egg, for an egg. If you see a new one, if you see a fresh one that's not pinched, you know, hey, maybe that is a one that they're going to use. You can flip it up, check a look, see if you've got an egg, and then you can move on, plan for it. Otherwise, you'll be checking 30 and 40 or 50 of those rascals in every single hive, and you're just burning time that you don't need to be doing. So if you pinch those, you'll save you a bunch of time in the bee yard there.
And another thing Greg learned is a 5-frame box means it holds 5 frames. If you want to make money, now I'm going to let Greg tell you how many frames you run if you want to be efficient and make money.
If you're in your yard a couple times a week, 2 or 3 frames, and you can move super, super quick. You're not busting frames out of the way. There's less bees that you're aggravating. If you're pulling queens, you can find them way faster. You can check for their laying patterns. Run 2 or 3 frames in there. The one thing that I've learned here in Ohio is if you're not going to get in that box for like 7 to 10 days later, they will make wax and you will find that new queen laying eggs from the lid, and you got you a mess to clean up. But if you can get in there and you can maintain it, man, 2 or 3 frames is definitely the way to go.
Yep. I teach how to work hives faster here, more efficiently.
Well, that's all fine and dandy, Don. But you know, my situation, my bees are up 3 hours away. I'm up here every 2 weeks. You know, I don't have a chance to go in my hives.
Well, then you need to run 5 frames, and you need to take more time to go through them thoroughly, or run supers on them. 5 frames, you put a super on the 5-frame box.
Well, I just made your Ross round supers, so I wanted to put them on this weekend, but they just weren't built up enough.
Now, the Ross rounds now, did you buy cut comb?
No.
What'd you put in the Ross rounds? You got to have wax in between the rings.
Yeah, I got the thin, the surplus.
Well, it's called surplus, but it's thin. It's 22 sheets to the pound.
Yeah.
And it's almost transparent.
Yeah.
Now, when the Ross grounds came out, they suggest you put a whole piece in there. I learned that if you take that piece and make 4 cuts out of it and just come down in that ring about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch, it's less chewy and it gets a better price for it.
Now, you see, I had a problem last year when I put the thin surplus in, and the bees chewed half of the wax out.
Because there was no honey flow.
Exactly.
Yeah, see?
And now I was wondering, I was like, gee, you know, should I take that foundation out of there, or should I just put it back in the hives and let the bees build new comb on it? So you just answered that question.
Psychic, huh?
But getting back to those queen cups, so then you want to cut them out, you want to smash them up.
Yeah, smash them. I mean, if you're in the business to sell a lot of queens, I mean, If they got a larva in there and you got good queens in there to start with, then, you know, let them develop.
Yeah. I just figured, you know, if they're making queen cups and there's no egg in there, what's, you know, why should I tear them out? I mean, they're not going to do nothing with it.
Well, you never know. Some bees, that's what they do. They run them as spares, I guess.
Yeah.
They got a mind of their own. Once you try to keep them under control, they'll show you who's boss.
All right. So if I see a queen cup and it's empty, you know, I can just.
You can either pinch it or take your corner of your hive tool and scrape it downward.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Over to Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
I have 4 hives. Today I did my check with alcohol wash. So one of my hives out of 300 bees, I found 9 mites, but the rest, the other 3 hives, I found no mites. So do you recommend me to do a oxalic acid in this situation, or it's too early, like it's too soon?
Well, it's never too soon. And, you know, I believe in preventative treatment. If you don't have any mites, then I would do a maintenance treatment once a month.
The last time I did was 2 weeks ago, but I checked for mites today. As I said, no mites on 3 hives, but one of the hives was like, I count 9 mites out of 300. So in this situation, so what do you recommend?
Well, personally, I treat. I don't want to be losing bees. I would rather treat and have preventative measures. Because once they start building up mites, you know, they're going to get under the caps and you're not going to kill them with oxalic acid.
Okay. And the other question is, I recently, like 3 weeks ago, I had a super on. They haven't touched it yet. I see some bees are working on it, but they haven't even made comb.
Where are you at? Whereabouts you live?
Los Angeles.
Well, you might not have a honey flow over there.
So do I need to remove the super and start feeding them, or what do you think?
Is every frame covered real heavy with bees?
The deep and medium that I use as a brood box, they're full of bees and brood and honey. But the super that I add is they haven't touched it. So I removed the queen excluder to help them, you know, go through the super easier. Do you recommend using a upper entrance to encourage them to get there easier, or it doesn't help?
Well, it helps for ventilation and it doesn't hurt the honey flow. But if you're trying to make honey, I wouldn't even be running a queen excluder.
Okay.
I would put an extra box because more bees make more honey. And if you're worried about the queen laying in the honey box, put an extra box in. She's only going to go so high.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay. And over to Paula. Go ahead, Paula.
Hey, Don, how are you? I have a comment for Paula in New York. I was at a queen rearing class last week at Cornell University, and there was a guy there from Australia. And similarly, he can't get to his hives, his queen castles, more than every 3 weeks. So what he would do is he put a queen cell in his queen castle, and he actually built a queen castle that he filled the bottom with sugar, so that he granulated sugar, and he put 2 frames of nurse bees in there, 1 frame unbuilt, put granulated sugar in the bottom and close it up, and then he'd be able to come back in 3 weeks and see if it mated. So that might be an option for you to maybe help you, you know, when you can't get back out to your queen castles. So just as an idea. So I thought that was interesting, the way he did it. He's mating like 1,000 queens a week, you know, doing 1,000 queen cells a week. So he's like, I don't have time to be messing around with, you know, every single one of these.
Most people that do it on a large scale have a remote type feeding situation.
Yeah.
Putting dry sugar in a bunch of hives doesn't make a lot of sense as far as commercially, because a lot of backyard beekeepers will do that, and the first thing they complain about is a lot of ants in their hives. So the bees will haul out a certain amount of dry sugar. I mean, it works good in late fall, as an emergency thing, and I would suggest maybe a cupful and no more than a cupful at a time, and drop it down in the back of a hive just as an emergency situation. But I wouldn't do it on a regular basis, not for mating queens.
Well, maybe he has a special situation because he's in New Zealand. Maybe they don't have the ant situation we do. To your
right.
point.
So everybody, you know, that's putting different videos out it's a lot of it's local. It's like I'm doing so many things wrong here, and I've had probably 10 new students in the last 2 weeks, and they're actually going through hives, and they get up to 20 or 30 hives, and they say, "Wow, we finally hit 5 small hive beetles walking around." So, you know, I'm under a pine thicket. I'm doing a lot of things that most people say, no, you can't do. If you have a strong hive, you don't get hive beetles. And you can ask any student. I have 1 and 2 frames, and there's not a lot of bees in a box, and we only get one beetle or 2.
Yep.
Plus, I'm fighting a man that does cutouts. Less than a quarter of a mile from me, he does cutouts, and he brings that crap home, puts it in boxes. So he's bringing mite bombs to me almost every day.
Yeah.
He done like $160,000 in cutouts last year. So he stays busy 1 or 2 a day doing cutouts.
Huh.
So everybody tells you something, and a lot of times I tell people, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I try to tell people is, if you want to learn something, ask people that make a living for it. People that write a book. I have not met very many that wrote a book that are an expert that run more than 10 hives, but they have every answer for you.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah,
that's why I try to do my best to help people.
Yeah, I thought for Paul, maybe, you know, I always try to think when everyone says, I can't, I think, well, maybe I can if I try something a little different. So I was just trying to give him an idea.
We have those 3 people in our bee yard I talk about all the time. We put them out of business quick.
Okay. So anyways, I was trying to give him an idea, but I have a question for you, Don. I have 2 questions, actually. One, you know, there's a lot of discussion always on Fat Bee Man chat about, or not on the chat, but on the page about 2-to-1 sugar syrup versus 1-to-1 sugar syrup. And a lot of people saying, oh, use 1-to-1 if you want to encourage comb building. And I always thought, hey, look, the bees just want the sugar and make it as thick as you can. And so I was wondering your opinion on that. And then secondarily, my second question is, what is your success ratio on mating queens when you put a queen cell in? Because I feel like I get about 75%, and I just wondered what your success ratio is. So those are my 2 questions.
Well, as far as queens returning, I got about probably 98% hatching. But as far as returning, springtime right now up to probably into July, I'm probably getting about 80, maybe 85%. But I'm also mating in a thicket. Mm-hmm. I have some along my driveway, which is open, but you know, you have to average things out. If you need 10 queens, raise you 20. That way you'll have some.
Okay. And then on the sugar syrup.
The sugar syrup, Greg filled some buckets up, and I probably had 5 students here in the last 3 days, and that's all I hear. Everybody says 1-to-1, 2-to-1. And you know, I've been telling students, if your wife fixed you beef bouillon soup in the morning and you was coming over here to dig some ditches and your brother had steak and eggs, who's going to work longer?
Exactly.
So, you know, here's the thing. I don't know where it started. I feed about a 5-to-1. My stuff goes through it's fructose, which is really thick. It's like Carol syrup coming out of there. In fact, unless it's hot outside, it'll probably take you 4 to 5 minutes to fill a 1-gallon pail.
Yeah.
Greg was over here and he filled some pails up. And tell him how long it takes you to fill them pails up, and it's thick like Carol syrup coming out of there.
Yeah, it probably took, man, it took at least a minute. It's thick, and you can't get any more flow. And I think that's probably maybe 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches coming out of there, reduced down to like maybe 3/4. I mean, it's thick. It's really heavy. It's probably weighs. It's got to be 20 pounds a gallon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it takes a little while.
Yeah, Don, I wish you'd post, you know, I like the top 10 tips. I wish you'd post on your Facebook page that,
I'm just going to post them up there, and she's going to put all the things to do and things not to do when you come over here. I mean, everybody's going to learn something and take a little something different away from this yard.
Yeah. I just, you probably have some wisdom about, like sugar syrup and queen cells and things. And I sort of feel like your Facebook page sometimes runs amok with everyone giving opinions, and we can't hear the Don voice.
Well, you have to realize I've got students coming in and out all the time. I usually check my emails. If I get up early enough, maybe a half an hour at the most in the morning. If you have to talk to me, make it short, snappy, to the point.
Yep.
I have people that send me their whole life story, and it's 5 pages long. I don't even read it. I read the first 10 words, and I see how long it is. I just delete it.
Yep.
I get so many emails. Everybody wants your opinion, It's, I try to do out as much as I possibly can, but on my Facebook page, I'm not going to jump in someone's argument,
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, people have common sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul, did you have something to add to that, or? Hang on. You're muted. Hold on. Do it on your end. Go.
Oh, Paula, no, you went to Cornell up here in New York?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, you're in New York also?
No, I think I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, go ahead.
Okay. No, I live in Massachusetts, but I was up at Cornell this past weekend for a queen rearing workshop. And so there were some guys up there. There was a guy from a commercial queen rearer from North Carolina and one from New Zealand. So it was an interesting program.
Yeah.
I wondered, did you ask what they knew me?
I did not ask that.
You'd be surprised the people that say they know me and maybe just read about me.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of taking the master beekeeping course online there that they offer.
I'm actually in that program.
Oh, are you? Do you like it or?
I do. I don't feel like I've learned a little bit, but it's an interesting program. I think it's a good program. I like they have a bunch of different input from there from both the field researchers as well as book people like Tom Seeley, as well as people like the scientific beekeeping guy. So it's a good balance. They're not opinionated so much as to here's a bunch of different techniques that you can try to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So
yeah. Oh, thanks.
Okay. Anything else, Paula?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Over to Keith. Go ahead, Keith.
Hey.
Keith, did you have a question?
Got it unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, Don, when you cut queen cells, if you had to move them, say, to another yard, what kind of climate do you have to keep them in, and for how long?
Well, if you're comfortable in your vehicle, those queen cells will be comfortable too.
So
my son raises, like 200, 500 at one time, and he runs them in an incubator. And I don't have an incubator here. He's got an incubator over here. So he left 2 trays of them on my kitchen table. And I says, you think they'll be all right? He says, your house is so hot, they'll hatch. And the next morning, they were standing vertical in cell protectors with the stands. And I had half a dozen hatch out. So I had to go out and let them walk into a hive that was queenless.
So
and in the past, I had a Cool Whip container with about 75 cells in it. And I was driving an old junk international truck to my bee yards, and some idiot pulled out in front of me, and I hit my brake real hard, and the Cool Whip hit the floorboard. And I thought for sure, none of them are going to hatch. I had better than half, maybe 3/4 hatch. I mean, they're tougher than what you really think they are.
So you don't have to keep them at a certain temperature for a few hours.
Once they get to that one day to where they're hatching out, or 2 days, they're pretty good much to go.
Is that the same for a brood frame? Like if you had to move a brood frame to another yard?
Well, now a brood frame is different. Now a brood frame, you almost have to cover it with a damp cloth because it'll dry out in the summertime. That's the biggest thing. If you're going to move brood frames, and I have done it from one yard to the next, I always just put some extra bees on them frames. Set you a box up and get a bunch of frames, put it in there, shake you some bees on it. And then when you go to put them in the hive, you don't want to lose the queen, shake them on top of the lid, let them fly out. They'll migrate to a hive that needs them.
Okay. That's all I got.
Okay.
And over to Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Don, I have another question. So, as I live in Los Angeles, we have Africanized bees. So, the queens that I get from here, I don't like them. They're like, what I see is they're semi-aggressive. I get stung many times when I open the hives. So, I was wondering if you send queens to Los Angeles too or not. Is it possible to send the
Right
queens
now,
back?
it's getting a little hot to ship them that far. I mean, I ship them. My son shipped a bunch of them to Texas here, I think, last week, and it's getting borderline. If you want to accept that responsibility, you know, where they make it, you know, Los Angeles from my place is about 4 to 5 days express.
Oh, there is a low chance to get the
Well,
live queen.
you run that risk.
So another question is, I have 4 active hives and I have plenty of drone. What is my chance of getting a queen from the cell without, you know, having a problem with Africanized drone?
The only way you can keep that is if you got a hive that's gentle and artificially inseminate.
So you think I have a low chance to let them make their queen?
If you're going to open mate, you have a chance they're going to be Africanized, because Africanized bees fly a little faster than domestic bees.
So is there any way that we can recognize Africanized bees? So what I see, some of my hives are super aggressive. You know, I mean, they follow me. They chase me for like maybe 10, 15 feet. So I have to sometimes run. Huh?
That's one sign.
Okay, but I know
the next sign is, it sounds like a machine gun hitting your veil.
Yeah, see, my hand is like.
Yeah, there you go.
So the place that I get my queens, probably they don't have good queens, right? Because the queens that I have is I got them mated. So,
yeah, if you get mated queens, who you buy them from in California?
I get it locally from the Valley Hive, where in Chatsworth.
Look up Dennis Lohman. He sells pretty good old world carniolans, and they're gentle bees. Now he's isolated.
Okay, what is that? What is the website again?
It's Dennis Lohan or Lohman.
Dennis Lohman.
Lohman, yeah. Try him. You might try. There's another fella out in Utah selling bees. I forget his name right now. He's got a big website up. I bought some bees from him, but the only problem with him is he sends them in a battery box, and if you're not fast, when you open the box up, all the workers are in the air, so you don't have no attendance left.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alvarez is his name.
What is it again?
Alvarez.
Alvarez.
Ray Alvarez.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. I will definitely try. Thank you.
I think you'll like his queens.
Okay. Over to Virgil. Go ahead, guys.
Hey, Don. One, I know it's going to more than just a quick answer, but if you can give me just the highlights. What's the best way? We've got 2 hives that we're focusing trying to keep up making honey with. What's the best thing we can do with them to keep them going?
Probably go in there and make sure, you know, the first thing I try to teach is go through there and evaluate your comb. Look at your comb. If it's dark, put some new comb in there. Try to hold down the amount of drones you got in there and stretch cells.
Okay, if we start seeing a lot of drones, what should we do? Just pull those frames and
you can pull them out, start you a junk hive. I run usually 5 or 6 junk hives, and the junk hives usually turn into being good hives later. Anything that's stretched, old comb, or full of honey, honey-bound frames, I throw them in a junk box, and I let the bees hatch out. And then once they hatch out, I take the frames of honey. If it's old comb or stretched, I have a robbing box. I set 15, 20 frames at a time out and let them rob it. I cut it out, all the wax, melt it down, make new wax. You got to go through there and manipulate your hive.
Okay. How often would you recommend on an A-frame?
An A-frame, personally, I don't like to run wax more than 3 years. If it hasn't been sold in a nuke, I cut the wax out and put a new starter strip or just an empty frame. Now,
Okay,
many of my students see me putting frames, they went no starter strip at all.
well, we since you recommended, because they were having a heck of a time with the plastic, that's what we've been doing, just putting a little, 1/4 inch of starter strip in, and they're just going to town.
Yeah.
But would you say I should be going through those boxes every 7 to 10 days, or?
Well, if you're running honey, every 14 days at the max.
Okay.
Because from the time you look at it, 16 days, you got a queen hatching. So if you missed anything around, where you got a pile of bees on a frame, they hide themselves. And if you're producing honey, and I don't care who it is, anybody that produces honey is running a hive. It's always on borderline swarming all the time, or it ain't going to make a lot of honey.
Well, if I do happen to miss it and there's a queen cell, what should I do? Cut the queen cell or pull the queen?
Well, why would you pull a queen if it's a production hive?
Well, that's what my thought would be. If I didn't pull her, she'd go ahead and swarm anyway.
No, she won't.
As long as I can get that queen cell out of there, she'll stay.
You can either cut it or you can make another split. Just put one frame in there with the queen cell and shake some bees. You can put it 2 foot or 5 foot away, and just the old bees will fly back to that hive.
You need to tell Virgil to keep me in woodware. Tell him to quit cutting me off.
I mean, when I was younger, I was building a couple hundred boxes every single week, and I could never keep up. Because you got to, at evenings, you have to build, and then you have to sleep some, and the next morning you're out there cutting cells and making splits.
I believe it. And it's like an addiction now. It's like I can't quit.
Well, if you can get the equipment, and you can start with what you have right now and hit 1,000 the first year, and that's no problem at all.
That's what I keep telling him, but he ain't listening. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
All right, over to Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
If I introduce a queen cell to a laying worker hive, will they raise that queen cell and straighten out?
I've never had too much problems with that. A lot of people have good experience just going, a couple of 100 feet up in their bee yard and shaking all the bees out on a sheet or a tarp or something and then taking them back. I have had hives that the queen wasn't producing well. I wouldn't say that she was a drone layer. Drone layers are usually queens that never got mated or mated with inferior stock.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to get really a drone layer in there unless you're producing mass amounts of queens and you're using up your drones and they're inbreeding.
I'm not, and I have a lot of drones. I've put some green comb in. My drone count is good.
Well, if you got green comb in there, you should be good.
Okay, and I got like 5 other beekeepers around me.
Well, you can't. It's like if you got daughters, you can't tell your daughter who she's going to go with. So if you got beekeepers around there, it's whatever they're going to mate with.
Yeah.
Sometimes variety is good. I mean, if they got good bees, they can work them. It's good. I buy stock from several, quite a few different people. And ones that I have problems with, I don't buy them. But I buy them basically to mix up the genetics. See, I want bees that you can work without gloves, without a bee suit, and they don't chase you to the house. But I want bees that's going to survive. I want bees that's going to work.
Yeah. Makes it a lot more interesting and fun when you don't have to wear the big suit.
Well, beekeeping, backyard beekeeping is one thing, but then when you get into the commercial, it's crapshoot. I mean, I have bought several queens from several people that I wouldn't recommend. There was a fella in California, I bought queens from about 15 years, and he had a good price on them. I bought, 25, give them a try. But now, seeing what they do, if he paid me $25 per queen to take them off his hands, I don't want them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to come out the door and have the bees running me back, and I don't want customers driving up and they have to jump back in their car. And when you get bad stock, most people don't understand. It takes you 3 to 5 years to get that stuff back out.
Yeah, because it's hard to requeen them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay.
Jay Gilmer, are you there?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yep, can hear you, can't see you.
I'm having troubles with that. Hey, Don, I talked to you several months ago, and we talked about when I sell nukes.
Mm-hmm.
You told me to make sure that I kept my box there, and that way I would catch the field bees coming back in and to sell them anywhere from 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, that works.
It works.
Yeah, it does. I'm having real good luck when I do sell them. I'm immediately putting a box back in that spot and putting some frames in there, and then I'll throw one frame in there that's got eggs in it. And next thing I know, I've got them growing a queen, and we're working right through it. Like today, I sold 2 boxes, and when I put them back in there, I started going through my other ones. I found 2 ripe queen cells, so I just dropped them in, and it works good that way.
Well, one thing you could do, I sell my nukes for pickup. I sell them usually between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock. If people want to come first thing in the morning, I recommend just buy them from somebody else. Even if they come first thing in the morning, there's going to be bees out. I run a commercial yard here, and I also teach. So my students are paying for my time. And then I've got students that want to help load boxes. We load them from 1 to 5. And if you're right now in this part of June all the way up to September, I'm starting to run the nuke that's ready for a pickup. I mark it, plus I run a super on it. And you don't have to have 1 or 2 frames in there. A frame of honey. Because if someone's picking 10 nukes up and then a half an hour later you got another customer drives up and they want 5 or 6 queens, you don't have time to get those field bees or to secure them. So leave the box in its position and transfer your frames into their box. And if you got a frame of honey in there, it's going to collect your field bees. If you got time, just throw a little bit of brood in there. Go out to one of your hives. I've showed students how to do it, and I put very little smoke on it. I go out to an 8-frame hive. I don't even check for the queen. I spread the frames apart, pull a center frame out, give it one quick shake, bang. Slide the frames together, put the empty frame on the outside, take that frame and drop it in that nuke. Now you've got eggs. If you're in the center of that box, there's nobody can make any queens any easier. And then mark the box. Or if you keep track of how many you got, you come back in that thing in 10, 11 days, cut out 30 cells, make 30 more splits. Each time someone comes, I can tweak up how to make things faster and faster.
Right. Now I have been putting doubles on my nukes, and that way when I pull it off, I've got frames ready to drop right back in that place. It's ready to go.
Yeah, you don't have to have deeps if you got a medium on top and you're running deeps. And the next thing is you tell the customer before you even open the box, you get adhering bees and make sure you get a good 2 frames, 3 frames of sealed brood, and you got a good honey frame in there, and make sure you got all your frames drawn out. Sometimes if you get short, you might have a frame that's not fully drawn out, but some customers will take it. And you know, you're the beekeeper. If you want to be in business, treat him like you was buying that box. If you look at that box and snicker, say, well, I got over on him, that customer's not coming back.
No, I want them to have 5 full frames of bees, and I give them, right now I'm not selling enough to where I don't have the time, so I'm giving them a couple hours of training if they're new beekeepers, just to teach them how to work the hive so that when they get home, they don't lose them. I want them to do good because that'll be my business coming back later.
Right.
But I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you in Willis when you get down here.
Okay.
Okay. Over to Amir. Go ahead, Amir.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Okay.
Well, I got my feet wet. Got a couple packages. Got one package last month in May, and got brood out of it. Got hatches laying the second round of brood in there. But I have a question.
Okay.
I had an 8-frame. I put 5 frames in it.
All right.
They basically drew out the middle 3. They drew the outer parts out on the 2 outer ones, but they didn't draw the inside of it out. And so
you're talking about you put a package into an 8-frame box.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's best to put the package in a 5-frame box and get them to develop that up first. That way
Okay.
you can control the heat better, and they can, they build that out a lot faster. Once you get to that point, then drop that into your 8-frame box and then add the extra frames.
Okay. All right. I was just testing myself, and so the second package I did put in the 5-frame in the new with only 3 frames in there, and I just did it Monday.
Yeah.
And it got comb drawn already.
Yep.
And
Gotta get all the frames in that 5-frame box, because if you're feeding them, they'll start drawing comb from that lid.
right. Okay. Okay. One more thing. Does sugar water go bad?
You're putting too much water in your sugar. That's the only way it goes bad. It ferments.
It ferments.
Yep.
Okay.
See, what I'm using out there, the sun sits on it all day long. It's not going to ferment. It's like 5 to 1. The more water you put in, especially well water, you're going to get a little bit of fermentation in there. You can do a 1-to-1 if they drink that up in 1 day or 2 days, but after the sun hits it, it starts to ferment. That's what causes a lot of your bottles, your jugs, or your jars to start turning black and moldy.
Well, I didn't get that. I just heard someone talking about it, and I just wanted to make sure that's wasn't what I did. I actually took about 50 pounds of sugar and put it in a 5-pound pail and filled the rest of it with water.
Yeah, well, you got a good
5-gallon pail.
You got a pretty good mix then.
So, one thing I want to ask you, the terminology about backfilling. What does that mean?
Backfilling is getting honey bound. They're putting more brood or nectar, or putting more nectar or honey in the cells. So they're getting backed up or honey bound.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, here where I'm at, they're pulling in pollen,
right?
But it's kind of slowing down.
Yeah.
So I noticed the package I put in the other day on Monday. They're automatically up in the feeder drinking the sugar water. So.
Well, I don't know where you live, but you might be in an area where it's had a lot of rain and they're not getting pollen. But mine, we've been having rain, and this morning they was bringing in bright yellow, and then by noon, 1 o'clock, I went out there and it was bringing a real bright orange.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm seeing that we have had some rain here within the last week.
Yeah.
Days out of the week. Other than that, everything looks good. But what I want to ask you is, how long? Now I've got them in that 8-frame. How long should it take them to? I've only got 7 frames in there now. I don't have the full 8. How long you figured it takes them to fill that box up, that one single deep?
Well,
I've had 1 cycle of brood already, and I'm on the 2nd cycle.
If you had 1 cycle of brood, do you have a 2-pound package or a 3?
A 3-pound.
A 3-pound package, you should be busting out the walls. Sounds like you got mites.
They covering all the frames, but really concentrated on the middle 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But I see now after that first hatch out, they're starting to cook all the 7 frames I got in there. So,
I'd put the sugar to them, make it good and thick, and I would be treating them. Are you treating with anything for mites?
Not treating yet. I got to get the little. Can't get the ProVap yet, so I'm gonna get one of the little single wands probably here and start treating them with that.
Don't wait too long, because you're already getting into mite season.
Okay.
But see, I put packages in, like 3-4 weeks ago, and they're already in 8 frames solid.
Okay.
But I'm feeding, and I don't put a lot of water. I'm feeding sugar. I mean, I'm trying to build numbers.
Yeah, I had to feed on them the whole time. I just offered it to them whether they wanted it or not, but I started seeing honey in it. Another thing is, I got you. The honey's not capped. Now, how does that work?
Well, when it's capped, you can extract it if you got a honey frame.
Yeah, but don't they cap it the band around the brood?
Well, the capped honey usually on most hives they'll come down and anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches. Some go maybe 2.5 inches. That's the honey band. It's right underneath the top bar. The rest down is going to be brood.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Now, if you got a frame, if you got mediums on there or got a frame, I've showed several students, it could be partially capped and nice white caps, and part of it, half the frame could be open. Just turn it, leave the bees sit on it, and turn it sideways and shake it over a lid. the bees will fall off, but you don't see droplets of honey coming out.
Right.
That's the way we've done things back in the 50s and 60s before they had all these refractometers and fancy tools and gadgets that people waste money on. That's old ways of beekeeping.
Okay. And I never put another another box on top. I just let them, I tried to get that 8-frame built up as quick as possible and get some comb drawn so I can use it if I'm splitting.
Okay, well, I would put the treatment to them.
Okay. All right.
If you can't get a vaporizer, put you some Apivar in there. And if you can't afford to do that, you can always get oxalic acid and do a dribble method. But, you know, I don't like to do it. I don't like to recommend it. It's cheap, but if you get that dribble with that oxalic acid, you get it on the queen, you run that risk of damaging your queen.
Right.
And then you damage brood too.
Okay. All right. I'll check that out. That's all I got for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
We got 2 more questions on the docket here. We got Mr. Zirkle.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Okay. Haven't seen you for a while.
Well, I've been very, very busy in the bee yard, and by 8 o'clock, I can barely keep my eyes open, to be honest with you. I've had a good year.
That's the life of the beekeeper.
Go ahead.
Life of the beekeeper, ain't it?
It is, and I'm not as young as I thought I was, and I should have started this hobby about 25 years ago. But my problem is I've added on 2 more apiaries in this year, and I'm trying to get my stock built up. I'm trying to get hives moved to these other locations, and so I've been very busy. But I went from 15 10-frame hives to I think I'm at almost 50 10-frame deeps. I'm about stacked 5 high. I should be splitting, but my supplier ran out of wax. So I'm kind of caught short without supplies, as I am every year.
Well, now you're looking for an excuse not to work them bees. That's what
Well,
you got empty frames, don't you?
Yes, I do. Can I just put empty frames in there? Put a little wax on them?
You don't even need that. Drop them between 2 to straw it out. Now stop and think what I'm going to tell you. The bees in a tree, do they stop at day end and pick them up some foundation?
I heard they're more of a Man Lake bee.
Oh, they go to Man Lake and get
No, they don't.
Oh, see, as long as you got a frame on each side and you drop one in, that gives them a bearing to draw off of, and you draw some nice comb.
All right, I'm gonna do that then, because I'm kind of.
And another thing, you know, you're up like I am in age, so don't be doing deeps 10 frame. Drop down to 8s and stay with a lot of mediums. It's going to be better on your back.
Well, I pulled a frame out. I tried to pull a frame out of the one hive I have. It's 4 deeps and a medium. And when I tried to pull that frame out, I thought the bees were holding on the other end of the frame. It was so heavy. And then when I took the box off, it had to be 100 pounds. It was full of honey. But that's not what my questions are a couple. The one gentleman that mentioned about a laying worker, I did a shook swarm on mine, and that seems to help, because what I was told was that the laying worker has never left the hive and hasn't oriented, so that's why it usually never makes it back to the hive. Is that true, or do you?
I don't know. Where'd you get that information, and how valid do you think it is?
Well, I heard it from my state bee inspector, so I'm hoping it was valid information, but he's much more educated than I am, so I don't want to second guess him.
Well, I've never really had a big problem on that, because I change out queens. When I don't see production, as soon as I open the lid, and I try to teach students that, the first 5 seconds is so important. You're analyzing that hive before you even get in it.
Okay.
So, you know, if you got a little bit of noise there, then check it. Then look for brood. Look for eggs. If the eggs are smaller, then you got a laying worker.
Okay. Now, the other question, two quick questions I have is, early in the season, I was unable to make queen cells, and I was crowding my bees down, but it was very cool, and they weren't drawing the queen cells.
Right.
Today, I went to a grafting class, and I learned I'm not meant to graft, because the instructor told me as I scooped the little 2-day larva out of the cell, I said, what should I do with it? He said, wipe it on the side of the frame. I said, wipe it on the side of the frame. He goes, yeah, you basically destroyed it with your Chinese grafting tool going in and getting it. So I can't see those little larvae to graft them, but he mentioned about nicking the bottom of the cell. If you take,
notching.
Yeah, have you done that, and do you like that technique? If they're not drawing?
There's a lot of techniques out there. It's just like there's a lot of vehicles. Some people like to drive Volkswagen from one place to another. Some like a pickup truck, some like a Cadillac, some like a Mercedes. Whatever's going to work for you and your needs. If you don't need but a few, I had two fellas come back 2 years ago and was watching me graft back there. And they said, well, all the problems they have. They got macular degeneration, floaters, cataracts, can't do this, can't do that. And I said, well, how many queens you need? Well, I'd like to get at least a dozen or two, a week. So I cut a strip out, and that's where I did that cut a 1-inch strip with a box cutter and press it onto a Hive box, bar, and stick it in the box. Well, they come back 3 weeks later and it says, but damn, that thing, half of them took, and that's more queens than we need. So there's always a way to do something.
Okay.
Grafting, is okay if you can see and you have a need for a lot.
Okay.
People that graft, some like a starter, some like a finisher. We put them in a starter and we run a lot. We run 2 frames of cells per 5-frame box. That gives us 90 cells. We can get a 90%, 95% take. Once they're capped, we drop them in an incubator. The incubator will run 200 to 500 cells.
Okay.
That's the economical way.
Okay.
So if you're going to graft, most people want you to dedicate 2 hives. That's completely for grafting. One's for starting and one's for finishing. And they don't tell you got to keep adding more new bees to that starter or they don't draw. They do it for 3 weeks and that's it. Or 3 good rounds of grafts. Because the bees get old. Not enough nurse bees.
Okay. And my last quick question is this. I watched 2 guys at a club meeting the other day, both intelligent guys, discuss whether to remove old wax out of a hive or not. And one said the new thinking is that there's a lot of good antibacterial properties in old comb, and to remove the old comb, you're weakening your hive. Now, the other guy spoke up and said, hey, the reason why we started removing comb from the hive was because of buildup of insecticides and things like that. We replaced the comb.
Yep.
Is that what you believe?
Oh, I can prove it. I have students that I've showed that to them. You put a new comb in there, go back in 3 days, and you see that new white wax, I would lay money you're going to find the queen in that new wax.
Okay.
Greg has seen that over and over, and Jason, and there's several other people's been here, and I pointed out, and it's just like night and day clockwork.
Okay. All right, that was all I had. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
John, I believe Josh has something to say about your state bee inspector.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania too. The first time I ever got inspected for my state bee inspector there, my hottest hive, they were like almost pure black bees. He was like, well, can I just grab a frame out of the center of your hive? And I was like, well, take a couple frames out and slide them over and go ahead. So he grabbed the center frame out and he's looking at them like this, and boom, right on the ground, the whole frame. Bees everywhere. He got stung 6 times. I was, I guess, smart enough to wear a little bit of clothing because I knew they were my hottest hive. But don't always trust what your state bee inspector says. I just went through a bout of unemployment here, and I was applying for a whole bunch of state jobs, and I was being heavily considered for state bee inspector myself. And I have nowhere near a lot of experience myself. I mean, I have a little bit of experience, but I'm not, you probably know more than me, but don't discount your own knowledge compared to somebody just because they have a state title.
Right. You know, most people are afraid of the state bee inspectors. The state bee inspector is serving you. You're not serving him. Right. And you got to size a person up. We used to have an old beekeeper here, or an old bee inspector, and he knew me for years. And then they got a new kid right out of college, and he knew everything. Don't let no bee inspector walk up to your hive and pull a frame out of the middle. If you're not sure of his capabilities, you tell him, point the hive out you want to inspect and tell me which frame you want to look at. Okay. Because if you're getting in a commercial situation and you bought a pack of AI queens, which I do a lot, you get 10 or 20 of them and they're $200, $250 a piece, and he rolls your queen. That's one reason the state of Georgia now don't let bee inspectors actually do much manipulation in a commercial yard. They'll go into a private yard to do that. But when someone starts giving me a bunch of lip, I just point out that what I know is a fact. I say, okay, where is your booties? Where is your throwaway suit? You didn't sterilize your hive tool. Watch what he's doing. If he puts a pair of canvas gloves on, he's not touching my hives. He is the bee inspector. What is he checking for? He's checking for disease. The last bunch he went through, did it have disease? Is he bringing it to me? This is my livelihood. I'm not afraid to jump on him. And he got on that cell phone out there on his speakerphone. I heard him talk to his boss, and his boss told him, that old man, he knows it. Don't mess with him. Listen to what he's got to say. Because I can make it rough on him, you know, because this is your livelihood. Yeah. So, you know, they come in there, they want to hurry, hurry, hurry and do everything. And you can't afford to have 1 or 2 hives destroyed because of him. Yeah. And if he's bringing disease to you, you know, once you get that on your permit or your license, it's on there until the day you die. And if it's your living, you got to fight that.
Okay. Now, another question I have is, if you end up with, let's say, European foul brood or something like that in your hive, is that a black mark against you? Because I understand from when I talk to people about that, that can actually clear up by itself if you feed the bees heavily, and it's usually a stressed nuke that had been queenless.
Well, it depends on how you want to look at things. If you manage your hives and you don't let people bring junk and garbage onto your property, you're not going to get it. Now, there's people think that European foul brood, throw terramycin or Tylosin is going to clear it up. They think the same thing with American foul brood. My thinking is, and I haven't seen American foul brood probably in 35 years. If you ever see it, ever smell it, burn it. I mean, there's no salvage and nothing. And even most states recommend you burning it. Okay. I don't believe in putting a Band-Aid on something that's going to come back and bite you.
Okay.
It's too cheap to buy new equipment or new bees. But now you can get chalk brood. You can get mummified cocoons in there. You get dysentery. You know, there's a lot of things you can put. You know, I use tea tree oil. I'm not a big fan of an antibiotic in a beehive. I just won't do it.
Okay.
So, you know, each person has to follow their path that they're going to follow. Now, when I do presentations, I hold a pack of terramycin up. It's outdated, about 15 years. And I say for the cost of this terramycin, you can buy 4 ounces of tea tree oil, and a tea tree oil will take care of fungicides and you know, a lot of different problems you have in a hive.
Okay.
That help answer your question?
You always answer all my questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I try to give you a good answer that you can understand. I mean, you know, don't put a Band-Aid on something, you know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Then that'll do it for tonight. We were in overtime a little bit. So thank you, Don. Thanks, everyone. See you in 2 weeks. And if you want to stick around for the after chat, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, Don. Appreciate everybody showing up.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up.